Hello, and welcome to another episode in the Wild Souls Healing Vulnerability series. I'm Julie.
And I'm Jamie, and we're here to have a conversation.
Yeah, here in the beautiful outdoors.
Yay!
It's so nice out, so we wanted to take advantage of the gorgeous weather. Film outside today. I'm appreciating it.
Yes, it's
Beautiful.
Florida, y'all, so we don't get this very often or
No.
for very long.
You know, a break from the sweltering heat.
Yes.
So today we are talking about meeting our own needs while also managing other people's expectations.
Nobody knows what
Yeah.
that is. Yes.
And we actually decided to do this video because our last video was on rest. And we talked about how, you know, you need to give yourself a chance to rest and all that. And then we went out and didn't do that at all.
Life has been hard, y'all.
Yeah, we had 2 weeks where we were just like, what are we doing to ourselves? So we're like, we need to probably talk about this a little bit more.
Yeah. Because we have a feeling we're not the only ones who have been feeling just icky. Gross.
Overtaxed, stretched too thin.
Yeah.
That's been my general disposition past couple weeks. So we're going to get into it.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Okay, so what happens when you are at a point when meeting your own needs means you can't come through for people?
Guilt.
Shame.
Shame. Yeah, I think the struggle that I've been feeling most recently is knowing that I know for sure that I am tired and not just tired, like completely emptied out, like exhausted. And also being very aware that I've already obligated myself to things that at the time that I obligated myself to those things, it felt fine. Some of it felt really good. Some of it in the moment I knew I didn't really want to do those things, but I said yes anyway. And it feels like a direct conflict between what I know that I need versus what I've already committed to. And the idea that I'm going to now back out of something that I've already committed to brings on a huge wave of what are people going to think
Right.
about me as a person? What are people going to think about this business? Like, how is it going to affect me in the long run and the perceptions of me if I really honestly just take care of myself, which is what I know that I want to do and what I should do,
What you need.
what I need, but it feels like it's in direct opposition with what the right thing is to do.
Right. Yeah.
And the right thing according to who exactly is the question.
Right. And, you know, we don't really look at our energy. We don't look at other people's commitments as a society. And when I say we, I'm talking about us as a society, as cyclical, like as waxing and waning. You know, there is an expectation that your output, your energy levels are going to be steady. And if they aren't, there's something wrong. Something that you need to correct.
Yes. There's a brilliant teacher. Her name is Lindsay Mack. She's a tarot teacher, but she's so much more than that too. I found her because her business is called Wild Soul Healing. And I didn't copy her, I swear. But like, I found her on Instagram because our business names are so similar. So I started looking through her content and following her, and she has a podcast, and we can put links to all of this stuff in the show notes too, but she talks a lot about what she calls spiralic existing. And it's about noticing. She breaks it down into, I think, four or five different places in like the spiral or the cycle. And it's about noticing where you are in each of those places and how to honor that when you're in that place. And that even in and of itself doesn't work linearly. So you can be in, I don't remember all the names of the stages, but you can be in like the first part of the cycle and then move into the second part of the cycle and feel that, but then go back to the first part of the cycle and be there for a really long time. And then you feel like, so she talks about that, and she doesn't talk about it like as if it's easy, but it was a completely different way of looking at just my own energy cycle.
Well, this is a little bit of a tangent, but our brains and the way that we literally think as a society and culture and everything is very linear.
Yeah.
And it's like steady progression. Like that's how we organize our ideas about how things work.
Yeah.
And it's really not true. Like if you
Right.
observe nature, they don't line up.
Right. Well, and I think it's represented in any man-made
Yes.
structure.
Yes.
That's linear. So the way that we look at time, the way that we look at school, like all of that stuff is linear from point A to point B to point Z. You must go along this path. And if you go quote unquote backwards,
Right.
then something's wrong.
Right.
Or you're broken.
Right.
Or you're failing.
Right.
When in fact, nature doesn't work that way. Our bodies don't work that way, especially as women. We know what it's like to go through a cycle.
Yeah.
And it's more difficult than I guess I thought to apply that same kind of grace and allowance in the way that I do with my body, to then apply that in the world that doesn't seem to honor that or
Yeah.
work that way.
Yeah, and how do you do that? Like, really realistically, like
Yeah.
we can say that all the time that, oh, this is how things actually are.
Right.
But if you want to actually honor your natural cycles, living in this world, how do you actually do that?
So I have a coachy answer to that.
Okay, let's hear that one. and
My
then let's
coachy
hear-
answer
Yeah.
is you have to be priority number one. And so it's up to everyone else on if they want to adhere to that or if they want to support that. That's up to everybody else. And if they don't, that's not about you. That's the coachy answer.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
In reality, it does not feel, that's not easy anyway, but it doesn't feel accessible to everyone all the time. To just do whatever you want and exist however you want to exist, and then everybody else can just deal with it.
Yeah, like
That doesn't feel realistic.
Monday, I can't call work and say, you know what, I need to honor my natural energy cycles.
Right.
And I will not be here this week because
Right.
I will be prioritizing myself and taking care of myself and my needs. So them kids and stuff that I'm supposed to be watching are just going to have to deal with
Figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the truth is, the actual truth is, you absolutely can do that.
Right.
Like physically, those
Yes,
words can come out of your
yes.
mouth. You can make that phone call. You absolutely can do that. The fact is, the assumption that we can just do that and whatever consequences are fine, to me is just dripping in privilege.
It's very tone deaf.
It's very tone deaf.
Yeah.
So the idea that everyone should feel capable of calling their job on a Monday morning and being like, I won't be there because I need to honor my needs. Figure it out. The fact is, that's a week with no pay that everybody is not in the position where they can be like, well, I'm taking care of my needs, so it's worth it.
Yeah.
No, that's not real for everyone. Maybe it's real for somebody, but it's not real for everybody. So I think, coachy answer aside, I think what I have learned in the last few weeks is that there are some things that I can let go of. There are some things that I can say no to. That the consequences do actually feel worth it to me. And so if I cancel a workshop, which we did, because I was in that place, if I cancel a workshop and people are disappointed or think something about me, if I'm looking at that consequence versus the fact that I really need rest, that I don't have it to give, I don't have anything to give you, that feels worth it to me. For you, I'll use you as an example.
Okay.
For you to wake up on a Monday morning and be like, Judah, her 3-year-old, you're going to have to figure it out because I don't have the energy to be your mom today. So hope you find food I need to take care of myself.
Yeah.
The consequences of that do not feel worth it. Because the reality is you are responsible for him. So he does need you. The people at work need you too.
Right.
And the idea of just being like, y'all figure it out, that's not realistic for everybody.
Right.
So I think there are certain things in our lives that we can let go of.
Yes.
Everything that we do and that we commit to is not all the same level of vital.
Right.
And so the process of looking at each responsibility and deciding which one feels the most accessible to let go of, I think that's the best way to really look at that. Because everything, for example, your house does not have to be spotless.
Right.
You can go sometime, if that's something that you can let go of so that you get to rest instead. If your house is messy, everyone's going to be okay.
Right.
Everyone's going to survive that.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I think there are levels of priorities that everything is not priority one. And the process of peeling that apart and really taking a look at, where am I putting my energy? What can I let go of for right now that will create more space for me to heal?
And I think it's important to understand that the reason why it can be difficult to do that is because we do get shame reactions. We do get like the feeling of like being judged. That makes some things like cleaning the house, for instance, feel like it absolutely cannot be let go of.
That's right.
And so I think understanding how to cope with what's coming up when we do let some of that stuff go.
Yeah.
And so that like it does feel restful. So like when you do say, okay, well, I'm just going to let laundry go.
Yeah.
But if you're sitting there trying to rest and the whole time you're like, oh God, you know, I'm panicking because I'm not now doing what I should be doing in this moment.
Right.
That's not rest.
Right. No. No.
You're like, I should just get up and do the damn laundry.
Yeah. I think that's a good point, because there are times when it does actually feel easier to just push yourself through this moment to get the damn thing done and then rest later. And I want everyone to know that I completely honor that and understand that 100%. That is a very real thing. And sometimes it's just easier to white knuckle your way through it. I would question, or I would pose the question, the after effects. Is that also easier?
No.
And that, in some cases, yes. In some cases, no. And so just being able to peel that apart, to be able to look at each aspect of that. You don't have to go through like an hour-long process for this, but just asking yourself the question, if somebody comes over to my house and they see that it's messy and they judge me or whatever, first of all, there's an assumption being made that they will, but okay, let's say that they do. Maybe that's okay, and maybe it's more okay than you're thinking it is.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Maybe you'll be fine. Yeah. Maybe you can survive the shame and the judgment.
Right. On the other end of that, if your mother-in-law is coming to your house and you're assuming that she's going to not only judge you, but like maybe say something to you that's going to hurt, I can say all day long that her opinion of you is not your business and that you don't need to worry about that. But the fact is, if your mother-in-law says something to you that is really judgy and pointed and hurtful, that would be an instance for me personally. My mother-in-law is fantastic. She would never say anything like that. But that example would be something that I would think in my head, could I use 3 hours to just not do anything? Yeah, and I need that. And also the pain of what I'm probably going to experience if I do that is not worth it. And so it's a decision that I'm making.
I think it's important for us to acknowledge for ourselves, yes, we have coping mechanisms in place. And yes, sometimes maybe that's not the healthy choice.
What does that mean?
Yes. Yeah. So I think sometimes you can, when you're trying to like do better or whatever, you can start shaming yourself and act because you're not where you want to be, and you're still relying on these behaviors that feel gross and on some level, but on some level you need them. That's why you're still doing them. Right. So like for this example that you gave, cleaning up the house so you don't have to deal with the comments from other people at that moment feels like the better option, even though it's a coping mechanism. You know, it's like putting the judgment where you're at in that moment. The judgment feels worse than the cleaning of the house.
Yes.
And that's okay.
And,
and you can honor that and respect, okay, I'm going to work on, I know I have some issues surrounding, like, and I can work on this when I'm ready. And in the meantime, I'm going to do what I need to do to take, you know, sometimes that is the self-care option.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So, honestly, I think there's no, there's no absolute to any of this, but if there was one, I think the art of permission and allowance, any version of that you can give to yourself, is the self-care.
Right.
And so if that means I am making a decision and I'm going to give myself permission to make the decision to do this thing that doesn't fulfill my needs, but makes it easier in the situation, I'm just going to make that decision.
Right.
Because that's what feels like the best option right now. That in and of itself is creating space for you to just let some things move out of your head. Right. And I think in that case, if healthy is a thing, I think that would be the actual healthier option. Right. Anytime you can give yourself permission to be where you are. Right. I think that's the secret sauce. Secret sauce. Which leads me to say this. The last couple of weeks for me personally have felt really gross. And not for any one reason, but for a lot of little reasons where I have not been okay. I have felt hyper sensitive, scared to death, and I'm offending anyone and everyone around me, taking anything and everything very personally. And the pain of just existing has been very present for me over the last few weeks. My initial reaction to that is always, this is gross. What do I need to do to change this right now? Because I don't feel good. I don't like this. And so I immediately launch into my toolbox of tools of how to, you know, change my mindset and feel better and whatever. I think at some point for me, they just weren't working. And there's a moment where I just surrendered to the idea that I was not okay. And I didn't particularly want to ask for support. Yeah. In some ways, sure. But really, I just wanted to exist in that with full permission to just not be okay. And as a life coach, for me, that carries a lot of shame in and of itself, that I'm supposed to, if I'm teaching people these tools, then I should be a master at how to exercise those tools. And clearly I'm not a master of that, because what does that even mean, number one? But maybe it's okay that there's a period of time when I just feel gross. I don't have the answers. I don't know if there's something wrong. I kind of feel like something's wrong, but I don't know what that is. Maybe that's not even true. It's just gross.
Maybe it's just a part of life and we don't have to resist it so hard.
Yes.
And we can just say, okay, this is where I'm at right now.
Yes.
And I won't be here forever. Right.
And I felt when that surrender happened, I felt an immediate, okay, things are just poopy. I just feel gross, and I'm not resting well. I know I'm not taking very good care of myself. This is just where I'm at. So, okay. Yeah. Like that, just acknowledging that and not trying to gaslight myself.
Yeah. Or force yourself into a different state of being.
Or try to pretend that that's not what's happening. It just was what it was. And that in and of itself created more space to breathe. Right.
Yeah, I mean, because then you're just dealing with what actually is versus dealing with what actually is and your feelings about it and your resistance about it. Yeah. So, like, all your energy is just like you're fighting yourself and what's happening.
Yes. Yeah, and that's hard. Yeah. That makes the whole process a lot grosser. More gross. I don't know. It makes it feel worse. It makes it last longer for me, personally.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. There was an element of this for me that I had. This is a vulnerability series, so I'm going to get real personal with y'all. I had 3 menstrual periods, pretty much back to back within about a 4 to 5 week period, which is not normal for me. And I felt each time that cycle was happening, I felt the weight of all that comes with that. And for me, it's being completely exhausted, irritable and raw. My body hurts, my brain gets foggy. And I went through that 3 times in about a 5-week period. And so the frustration that I was feeling with my body, my first instinct was like, what is wrong with you? Like, why? You're broken. Clearly there's something wrong with you. Why am I doing this? And being okay that that was happening too. Of course I'm frustrated. It's frustrating.
Yeah, you got hormones flying and going berserk.
Yes. And it was the judgment of like, well, that's not a very nice thing to do when the tagline of your company is body wisdom. Am I honoring my body wisdom right now? No, I was not. And that's fine. Because I felt terrible.
Yeah.
And that's okay too.
Yeah. And you don't have to like force that to be different.
No.
It's like you are going to be uncomfortable sometimes in life.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we have this judgment, assumption that we, number one, can't handle that. Like, we won't survive it. Discomfort in general. And number two, that we shouldn't have to feel that way.
Right.
And I really challenge that. Both of those ideas. Because we can survive. You've survived everything thus far, so I mean, like, you can survive it. But you're also perfectly able, willing, you have permission to hate every second of that life. That's okay too.
I feel like the souls of every advertising executive rising up and like trying to be like, shh. No. We have a product for that feeling.
Yeah.
We can fix you.
I will brag about our company for a second, because I think that's something that we pride ourselves on, is that, yes, we are providing a service, several services, to help you get to a place that feels more manageable. And part of that is teaching you how to be completely okay and comfortable with discomfort. It's not about you changing so that you don't have to feel discomfort anymore. It's about allowing discomfort to be a part of your experience without immediately judging it as something wrong.
Right. I feel like it's embracing the full spectrum of your humanity without like picking and choosing what's okay and what's acceptable, and then structuring your whole life about keeping out what you have decided is not acceptable.
Yes.
And creating more of what is acceptable.
Yes, exactly.
And I think some people think that's what coaching is, getting better at that process that I just...
Yeah, I did.
I
thought it's not. It's not at all. Our kind of coaching, at least, is really teaching you how to be okay with you.
And wherever you are.
And feeling okay with the fact that you're not okay with you.
Yes. Yes.
That's okay, too.
Getting okay with not being okay.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're not okay with not being okay.
It's all allowed. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like learning how to give yourself permission to exist.
Yeah.
You know.
In whatever form
that
looks like.
Yeah, and how. Yeah.
It's hard.
Hell yeah, it's hard. Everything that we're told from birth is opposed to that.
Yes. Yeah, and it's important to me that that you all know too that we are also struggling with that.
Oh yeah.
We haven't figured everything out.
No.
We're literally just we're going through the same process that we're sort of helping other people go through too, and so it's all hard.
Yeah, I don't know that it gets figured out.
Right.
Because I don't know, that again is linear. It's like there's like an ending point that you're getting to and then the end. It's like thinking about, okay, if I can make the most spectacular, satisfying meal of my life, I'll eat that and I'll never have to eat again.
Right.
It's just not how it works.
Right. No. No, it's not. It's hard. And I think as I'm watching like TikTok videos and YouTube video, whatever.
Jamie got on TikTok.
I did.
Y'all.
And It only took me this long. I appreciate how many other content makers I'm seeing creating content that is basically saying, you're not okay, and I get it. And I'm not okay either. And so we're in this together. And it's hard. And just acknowledging that.
Feels revolutionary.
Oh my gosh. It feels so validating. Because we have been gaslighting ourselves from day one.
And each other
From day one. And just to have someone say that you don't know and who doesn't know you, to have someone say, hey, I'm having a hard time too. The end. Like, I don't have like a secret answer to that. It's just, you're not alone.
Yeah, we're trying to figure it out.
That's it. Yeah. And that feels really validating.
Totally. I'm gonna consult my notes.
Consult your notes.
Okay. So how can we release shame around not being okay, not being able to produce, not having the consistent energy, not fitting into the expectations that are placed upon us? How do we do what we're just talking about?
Yeah. It's kind of a tricky question.
Yeah.
Because the expectation of releasing shame is the first
Yes.
part of it.
I don't want to feel the shame. So
Right.
what's the
Yeah, and
trick question?
I think a lot of things can be true in the same space that seem opposing. So what people think about you is not actually about you. I do believe that that's true.
Yes.
I also believe that it's true that the fact that we feel the need, or the fact that I feel the need for other people to approve of me or like me in order for me to be safe, sometimes that also feels true. It's not the truth, but it feels very real.
Yeah, I mean, and at some level it is real.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's in our DNA.
Yes. Yes.
Because what happened however many years ago when we were cave people and hunter-gatherers, and you got rejected from your tribe because nobody liked you, you died.
Right. Yeah, you couldn't survive.
Yeah.
And that message is still very much and dug really deeply down in our brain, that we can't do this alone. So because we are pack animals, if I feel alone, I won't survive.
Right.
And so I think the idea that we're going to, or that we're supposed to let go of shame as if it's something that you pick up and then drop down and never pick up again, that you leave behind, is too much pressure already. It's too much of an expectation already. I think just the idea of recognizing when that's happening, and then asking yourself, what choice do I want to make with this? That, I think, unlocks more options.
So you can,
of how to move through it.
You can feel shame and something else.
Absolutely, yes.
At the same time.
Yeah, and I mean, everything around us is working on the basis that shame and guilt works. So,
I mean, it does.
It's reinforced all the time.
Yes.
So it's not something that you can put down and then walk away from and never have to deal with that again. Like, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So I think just awareness is the answer to the tricky question that you asked. I think awareness is more helpful than anything else, really. It's just recognizing when that's coming up.
Yeah.
And reinforcing in yourself that you always have a choice of how you navigate that.
Well, and then also recognizing that when you feel shame, that doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you.
Right.
That just means you're human.
Yes.
That doesn't mean that the story you're telling yourself that's creating the shame is true.
Yes.
And when you can open up that awareness, you can, create space around it. Like, oh, I'm feeling shame right now because of this, and because I'm a human being and this is part of a human experience.
Yes. I mean, honestly, this is the basis of the show.
Yeah.
Of our series. It's literally why we're doing this. It's because I know that for me, it's helpful for me to be able to say, this is my experience. I'm feeling all of these things around this experience. I don't have all the answers for that. And even not having all the answers to that for that feels really gross right now. And so just being able to say that out loud, knowing that other people are going to watch this and go, I know exactly what she's talking about. I feel that I have that same experience, or I can relate to that. Is healing in and of itself.
Connection. Connection is healing, because then you're getting what you felt like you weren't getting. You're being pushed out, then you're getting brought back in.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me too, because some of you send messages to me and to you actually about how
shout out
about what your experience is like watching the videos. A lot of people don't, but we know that people are watching it. Obviously, we can see the number of views. I'm surprised that I don't need to have all of the people that have seen it send me a message and be like, I loved it so much. I don't have to have that in order to feel like what we're doing is worth it. And that surprises me. Because going into this, I thought that I would be attached to that.
Oh, you're like, I need to see results.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How linear of me. Yeah.
I'm just like, I get something from our conversations. So I'm like, I don't really care if y'all watch it.
I think it's fascinating how that has developed over time since we first started this, because I was very nervous about doing this to begin with, and then just sort of dove in, and then once every time that a video is released on YouTube, I go back and watch them. Most of the time, I think I've seen all of them. I go back and watch them, and I'm watching us, and I'm like, I'm surprised that I don't feel like really critical of myself or, judging what I said. I should have done that differently or whatever. I don't really have that experience, which is surprising to me.
I went into it thinking I was going to do that too. Like, oh, we got to edit these, right?
Yeah.
And then we were like, we're not technologically savvy enough to want to spend our time doing that.
Nope.
So we're just going to put it out there.
Yeah.
And it was really a decision out of laziness more than like self-confidence.
It wasn't like we don't care what they think.
No.
It was like, we don't know how to do this.
And we don't want to learn.
No, not really.
I'm not learning nothing.
No, I think that has been part of the medicine of this series for us that I really, really appreciate, which is why the topic of this particular episode is what it is, because I knew going through the last few weeks, I knew that I wanted to talk about this because I knew that that would be a way for me to feel validated, for me to feel safe.
Yeah.
Just by saying, this is very honestly, this is what my experience has been.
Well.
And I'm not okay.
Yeah.
And so what? I won't die.
Yeah. We'll be
or maybe fine. I will. I don't know. I will at some point. I don't know.
Who can say? For me, I wanted to talk about this because I see a lot of content and it feels sometimes, okay, so I know the intent of the content is to be helpful, but it doesn't feel helpful to me. It feels almost like shaming because it's yet another thing that I'm not doing right, because if I was like doing what these coaches said or like these therapists said or whatever, then I would be in a better place mentally. Like my mental health would be better.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, great. So I'm a failure at following this too.
Right.
And it's like, even what is supposed to be a resource feels like
a judgment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because
agreed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because again, I don't think it's really stressed enough that like all human emotions are a part of life.
Yes.
And feeling this way sometimes is normal. And if you are not, like a certain picture of what health looks like, that's okay too.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I think going back to what we were talking about earlier, I think anything that's trying to apply a one size fits all linear solution to more than one human is problematic already.
Right, of course.
Because we're all different. We're going through a lot of similar experiences, but we're all different, coming from all different places with all different traumas,
right?
All different triggers, and so nothing is going to be a one size fits all, except what I think, in my opinion, would be the only exception to that rule is the permission to be as best you can, the permission to be where you're at.
Yeah.
That feels like something that, it's a spectrum, but it feels like something that anyone, no matter where you're coming from, could grab onto a piece of that and feel a little bit of relief or a little bit of permission.
Yeah.
I might be wrong about that too. I mean, that may not be correct for everybody also.
Yeah. I'm just thinking this might be going off into a tangent, but that's what I do.
That's what we're doing. That's
yes.
fine.
That's my life. I'm a #1 internet researcher here. But I think the question that popped up when we were talking about this in my mind was how we talk about mental health and like pathological I'm saying
Pathologize.
That. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Words are hard. Certain feelings and to like what is acceptable, and you should be feeling this more than you're feeling this.
Yeah.
And like for instance, depression or anxiety.
Yeah.
So like depression, you're feeling sadness and hopelessness more than what is right. And anxiety, you're feeling fear and maybe like worry and more than what's right. And how even thinking in those terms does not feel helpful. Right. You know, because again, what is healthy? And how do you make that like systemized or standardized? Why do we try to standardize everything?
I have a theory.
Yeah, I want to hear it.
I think we do that because we're just trying to organize in our brain something that feels very vague and like a amoeba that consistently changes shape and consistency. So we're trying to make sense of that. And as someone, just my personality, as someone who leans on structure and order to feel safe, I get it.
Yeah.
I understand the desire to try to analyze, systemize something so that I feel like I can wrap my brain around it a little bit more, a little bit better. The fallacy in that, though, is that, first of all, very few things can actually be processed in that way.
Yeah.
And so it leads to more frustration.
Yes. And then like a whole system you got to throw out the window.
Yes.
In order to move forward.
Yes. And then it brings on more feelings of like, well, if I can't even understand this, then how am I supposed to move through it? And that's operating on the idea that in order to move through this, I must understand it first. When the fact is, I'm going to move through it whether I understand it or not. Like I'm moving through it right now.
Yeah. Why do we keep trying to make our world fit our brain when we should be making our brain fit the world? It's like taking a tool, like you have a hammer. You don't ask the board to adjust so the hammer you can use it. Right. The board and the nails, you know what I mean?
Say more things about that. I mean, I understand your example, but say more things about that. What would that look like for us to adjust our brain to the world instead of the other way around?
I think we don't really recognize how we train our brains to perceive the world, starting when we're kids and starting with the way that we structure our days, the way the education system looks, how we like socialize our kids. And we do that in a way that we start ordering the world in a systematic way that I just don't feel like is what actually exists in nature. Yeah. Like there are no straight lines in nature.
Right. Right.
So why do rulers exist? That we're making straight lines everywhere. Right. You know? It's just, and it's so ingrained that we don't even notice it, and we also don't notice how it's clearly shaping our thinking.
Yes.
So
practically speaking, what would be the alternative to that?
I don't know. I got a straight line brain. That would be something I would have to deeply think about.
Yeah.
And also maybe spend some time with kids whose brains aren't like messed up yet. not
Yes.
messed up, but you know what I'm saying, like
Yeah.
aren't shoved into this
Yeah.
certain programming just yet.
Mm-hmm.
And just play with that a little bit and see what that would look like. Also, maybe other cultures. Maybe that's why travel is so important, because they don't have the same conditioning and programming.
Yeah.
They don't have the same box that they're shoved into.
Yeah.
So
I remember I was in West Africa, and I remember this was 10 years ago. No, it was a long time ago. I remember watching how different systems in their culture operate.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember watching that going, what a beautiful example of honoring the human experience in its natural cyclical nature.
Mm-hmm.
And also realizing that by doing it that way, they, among lots of other reasons, but by doing something that way, they don't, for an example, live as long as we do in this country. This is a huge generalization, but I just remember thinking that. And then immediately after that, I was like, why is living 103 years the goal?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes,
Like,
uh-huh.
I was watching this particular group of people operate in a way that honors what's happening for them right now, and not looking at this life as like, I have to get to the finish line if I'm going to do this right. And the finish line, by the way, is 105 years old. Like, I could tell that that's not how they were operating. And my immediate judgment is, well, they're not going to live as long. Like, they're going to die younger. And immediately I was like, why is it better to live longer? Like, I don't know. It was just, it was interesting to see that, because the focus was what's happening right now. How do I honor what's happening in me, in this group, in this community, whatever, right now?
Do you think Americans are terrified of death
Yes.
because they spend their whole lives not living how they actually want to live and being forced to do things they don't want to do?
Ooh. Yes.
Yes.
And yes.
We solved it.
That's interesting. Do you think that we are focused on that because we want to give ourselves more time at the end of our life to like do it better?
When our duties are over.
Yeah.
And then we're like, oh, now we can finally live.
Right.
I'm like, you're 105. You can barely walk. And then you're like, I get 5 minutes to do whatever the fuck I want, and then I'm dying.
That is an interesting thought. Yeah.
Like, you have to earn your freedom.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, aren't we taught that we have to earn everything?
Yes, exactly. Prove your worth.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, circling back, I think the struggle for myself to honor my needs is that by doing that, I'm not proving enough to other people how valuable, lovable, whatever, responsible, whatever I am. And that to me is terrifying.
Right.
Because if I can't constantly prove that I deserve to be here,
Yes.
and that I deserve for you to love me or
Yes.
whatever, then why am I here?
Yeah. What's my purpose?
Like, what am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is it enough just to live for myself?
I would love to say yes, but
No.
that's not real for me most of the time. As I get older, it's a little bit easier to dip my toes in that. And there's something magical that happened when I turned 40 this year that like it's a lot easier to dip my toes in that. But in general, that's still a huge struggle for me.
Do you think when you turned 40, you gave yourself permission to go there more because you're like, I'm 40 now,
Yes.
so I have less to prove,
Yes.
like I've made it this far?
Yes. Thank you for pointing that out, because I keep saying there's something magical that happened. Clearly it was a decision on my part. But there was, I don't actually know where this came from, but it came from somewhere. There was something about that number for me that I was like, if I could just make it there, I could just make it to that number, then I decided, okay, now you can relax a little bit more.
You don't have to deal with the same
Right.
as... Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, that was a decision I made, clearly. Because there's still lots of stuff that's hanging on that I'm still working through, of course, but there was a big shift that I gave myself permission to experience when I turned 40. What's interesting to me is a very good friend of mine who also turned 40 this year, a few months after I did, had a vastly different experience.
Yes.
And hearing her perspective, she actually said to me, I know that you're excited to be 40, because we had her birthday party here. And I wanted her to be as excited to be 40 as I was. And this was a private conversation. She said, I know that you're excited to be 40. I'm not. And here's why. And it was interesting to hear someone else's perspective, that her experience of that was, this is all the things that haven't happened for me. And now I'm 40 and they still haven't happened.
And that deadline is looming.
Yeah.
And I'm not good enough because I haven't checked these boxes.
Right. So she also had an expectation, a decision that she made about turning 40.
Right.
It just happened to be on a different side of the spectrum from mine, but she had a very different experience with that because of those expectations that she decided would be in place.
Or maybe you guys had the same expectation, have the same checklist, but you check the boxes and she doesn't get to.
Well, yeah. I think that's the belief.
Yeah, in that system. Oh.
I think there's something, I remember that when she had that conversation with me, I had this thing in the back of my head that was like, make her excited about this.
Change your mind about this.
Say whatever you need to say.
Because it's not okay for her to not be okay being 40.
That's right. That's right. I remember having that thought in the back of my mind, like, coach her through this, even though she's not asking you for that at all. Change her mind so that she can be okay, so that you can feel okay.
Yeah.
Luckily, that's not what came out of my mouth. In that moment, I was hearing her, and I could immediately apply and relate to so much of what she was feeling, even though I didn't happen to be in the same space emotionally, but I understood exactly why she was feeling that way. And so out of my mouth came, I get it. And that was it, period. That was it. Yeah. That was the only thing I said. And just experiencing my discomfort with knowing that someone I dearly, deeply love is in pain. Number one, it's not my job to change that or to judge that as being wrong, but to just simply be there. Just be in the space with her and just say, I get it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's always an option, y'all. When someone's having a really hard time, it's okay if you just say, I get it.
Yeah.
And not try to change it.
Just let them be. It's not going to rub off on you.
Right.
Like, it's not catching.
Well, and the fact that I was uncomfortable with her being in pain, all that is just evidence that I'm human, number one, and that I love her very deeply.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with either one of those things, so it's okay.
Yeah.
You and I have had this experience, too, where it's hard to watch someone you love hurt. Like, that's hard. And also, the fact that it hurts is just evidence that you love them.
Well, and what I have realized about myself, like really strongly the past couple years, is when I'm mad and when I'm going through something and I'm talking about it, I don't want you to try to change nothing.
That's right. Right.
I don't want you trying to talk me out of it. I don't want to hear a voice of reason. Nothing. And I get pissed whenever people start doing that to me. And I know enough now to be able to verbalize that for the people that I love, but like it took me a long time because I was just like, leave me alone, you know. And I felt so alone walking away from those conversations.
Did you know at the time when that was happening each time, did you know what you were feeling and why, or did you walk away from that just feeling gross? And you didn't really know why?
I felt like I was being invalidated. Yes. And I didn't understand why. It took me a while to understand what I actually needed in those moments and how to ask for it. And then, you know, it changed. But it's something that I think it's very natural for people to go to that place. Like it's almost like for a lot of people, it's a first instinct. And it just, I would walk away from it feeling very like invalidated and alone and a little like shameful because I was not in a different place at the end, but I felt like I wasn't allowed to be where I was. So
there's a message I think that comes across not intentionally from the other person, but there is a message that comes across that clearly you're in pain because you're doing this wrong.
Yes.
So let me tell you the right way to do this so that you don't have to be in pain anymore. And then you walk away feeling worse. A lot of cases, feeling still in pain and also kind of shitty about what just happened.
Yes, exactly. I'm like, all right, well, fuck.
Right. I think that highlights the importance of being able to tell someone as best you can, and we're not always in a place where this happens eloquently or graceful at all, but as best you can, being able to tell someone exactly what you're looking for from them.
Yes.
So being in the place where you say to somebody, hey, can I just be petty right now?
Yeah.
Like, I just want to talk shit about something. And I don't want you to be rational. I don't want you to try to change that. I want you to be petty with me. Maybe that's can we just do this together?
Can you leave your voice of reason at the door? Right. It's not welcome here.
Right. If it's possible, if it feels possible to be able to say that to somebody ahead of time, the other person immediately knows what you need from them.
Yes.
And then they get to decide if that's something they're open to or not. But it's actually way easier.
Yes.
Because then they get to show up.
Yes.
If they want to, they get to show up exactly in the playing the role that you need them to play. And both of you walk away feeling so much better than what it would have been otherwise. Right,
because it releases the expectations from the person who has, like, is in the bad place to be anywhere but where they are.
Right.
And then the other person they're talking to doesn't have to fix it. So you get to release that expectation too. Like, you're like, okay, I don't have to do anything but listen.
Yep.
So I don't got to solve this problem.
That's something I learned in my marriage. That's the first place that I practiced that and saw how that worked. And to be able to say to my husband, I just need to complain. Nothing I'm saying means anything about anybody. I just want to complain about this. I don't want you to go into problem solving mode because that's what he does naturally.
Yeah.
I just want you to let me complain. And I've even said to him, you don't even have to listen. You don't have to respond. You can ignore me. I just want to say this out loud. I'm just letting you know this is what is about to happen. And that in and of itself changed radically the way that we communicate with each other. So that I do whatever I need to do. I say whatever it is. And he's like, okay, great. I don't have anything to do here. There's nothing wrong.
We keep playing my video games.
Fine. Yeah. It helps a lot. And I think it does. That's another way that you can just give yourself permission to be where you're at.
Yeah.
As gross and yucky as it is. It's okay.
Yeah, I was having a meltdown this morning when I was getting ready because I was running late. And I have I'm late meltdowns like on a regular basis. Yeah. It's like a thing that I do. Just exercise.
So fun for you.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, God.
So, and Eric's so sweet. He's trying to help me. He's like, babe, do you want me to like put some coffee in the thermos for you? Yeah. And like, what do you need? And like rubbing my back. And I'm like, oh, like, what? I'm like, I need to be mad.
Yeah. Yeah. I just need to panic right now.
Yeah, and you're making me mad by trying to like be nice to me right now. I literally went, and like threw something. And he's like, what? And I'm like, I'm vocalizing. Mind your business.
I just want to be mad right now.
Poor man. I was like, I do this, okay? It's my thing.
It's my thing.
Yes, just leave it. I'll be fine. Then I came back home and brought him a breakfast sandwich. And I said, here's your peace offering. I'm not mad at you. Yeah. And he's like, you didn't even give me a kiss when you left. I was like, I was mad.
That would not have been genuine.
No.
I do think there's something really cool about being able to say to someone, I just want to be mad right now.
Yeah.
Because I feel shame around that too.
Yeah.
Or especially the petty thing. Like, I just want to be petty. I want to gossip about this right now because I'm just feeling whatever I'm feeling. To be able to say, this is just what I want right now.
Yeah.
I know it's not right.
It's not a nice thing to do.
I know it's not nice. I get that I'm talking shit about somebody who's probably a lovely person. It doesn't change the fact
that we don't care about that right now.
Right. It doesn't change the fact that this is happening in my head. And to be self-aware enough to know that what I'm doing has nothing to do with the person that I'm talking about. It's just what I'm feeling. Mm-hmm. And once I put it out there, for me personally, once I put it out there, then I get to kind of let go of it or work through it or whatever. That helps with the shame part of it too. Just claiming, I'm just bitchy. Right now, this is just what's happening.
I'm just a bitch.
And I don't have the energy to fight it anymore. Yeah. It's here.
I'm going to be a bitch, and then I'm going to move on.
Right.
And then I'll be nice later.
And then I'll be nice later.
And then I'll be a bitch again. That's what I do.
So much of that goes back to that message that I heard as a girl. Be sweet and be agreeable and don't ever say unkind things about anyone or anything. Be easy.
Yep.
That's the right way to be.
Yeah.
Well, that ain't real. Not for me.
No. Is it really real for anybody?
I mean, I really don't think so. But
maybe like sweet little angels that are, I don't know any.
Who even, I know.
Yeah.
Who would that even be? Yeah. It's okay. It's all okay.
It's okay to not be okay.
If you need permission,
here it is.
Here it is.
We're signing your permission slip. Go be a bitch today.
If you are not okay, you are not alone, number one. And it's okay that you're not okay.
Yeah.
It's all right. And we love you.
Yeah. All right. I think that's the end.
I think that's the end.
Bye-bye.